Will and Share in the Face of Truth. This is our podcast that we study Black history and talk current events that affect our Black community and our Black people. And we are here to educate the Black Americans as well as all Americans about our Black history, especially our young Black men and women that needs to know their history and needs to know
Yes.
what our ancestors have fought for us. And even though we had a setback yesterday with SCOTUS in their ruling, we are still here for the fight. So we can't give up because God is always on the side of right.
Yes.
So we are going to talk today about a man by the name of Joesph Rainey. Joesph H. Rainey. And a lot of people probably don't know who this is, so that's why we're here to discuss Black history, unknown Black events that have gone on that we were not taught in school. And now they're trying to keep us from knowing about it. So that's what we're here for. This platform is to get educated about Black history and also to bring you up to date on current events for the Black community. So we are going to let Sharr come on and start off with our lesson tonight on Joesph H. Rainey.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to In the Face of Truth with Will and Share. Like my husband already brought out, we are here to share information, amen, with our audience, with our younger generation. We want your interaction. We want your feedback. We ask that you be polite, amen, with your feedback and your interaction with us. So tonight we're going to be covering Joesph Rainey. But before we do that, I'm going to show my t-shirt. My t-shirt says Black, Educated, and Empowered. And so we want to be educated. We want to be empowered as far as the things that we are facing and are up against today in this country as far as politics go. Okay. And how the things that are happening right now with the Project 2025 and what they're doing with the gerrymandering and what have you, and moving districts, okay, in order so that one side of the spectrum can get more votes from the people than the other side, which is truly wrong, which is corrupt, if you ask me. So we just want to touch on some of those things today. So we're going to be talking about why we need to vote blue in the upcoming midterms. Okay, we have the primaries going on here next week where we live. And so the midterms, we want to show out in droves. We want to get out there and vote, because in order to change this narrative that we are facing today, Black people, our Black brothers and sisters, we must get out here and vote. Do not sit the couch, okay, in the midterms. Do not think that voting doesn't affect us if we don't vote. It does affect us. It affects our communities. It affects our civil liberties. It affects our rights. And so we want our people to get up and get moving. And let's get out here for the midterms and vote blue, okay? And then my husband, Will, he's going to be talking to you why it's important in this day and age and this time to vote blue. Now, we're not telling you how to vote, but we want you to know why it's important that we do vote blue come the midterms, okay? So he's going to explain to you in just a little bit as to why that's important. So today, our lesson is on Joesph Rainey. We want to say hi to M.G. Morin. Hi, and welcome. So Joesph Rainey is his name. He was born in 1832 through 1887. Joesph Hayne Rainey was a groundbreaking American politician and the first Black person to serve in the United States House of Representatives. He was also the second Black person to serve in the United States Congress after Hiram Revels. He was born into slavery in Georgetown, South Carolina on June 21st, 1832. His father was a skilled barber who was allowed to earn money and eventually bought freedom for himself and his family. Joseph followed his father's trade as a barber, which was a respected profession and helped him build connections. During the American Civil War, Rainey was forced by the Confederacy to work on military fortifications in Charleston. And in 1862, he escaped with his wife, I believe her name was Susan, to Bermuda, where he worked and built a stable life. After the war, he returned to South Carolina during the Reconstruction period when formerly enslaved Black Americans were beginning to gain political power. Okay. We also want to welcome Alex. Hi, Alex. Welcome to the show. His political career started in 1868 as he helped write South Carolina's new Constitution. He was elected to South Carolina Senate, and in 1870, he won a special election to Congress, becoming the first Black member of the House of Representatives. In Congress, Rainey fought for civil rights for Black Americans, protection against racist violence by groups like the Ku Klux Klan, equal access to hotels, restaurants, and public places. And he also fought for rights for other minorities, including the Chinese immigrants and Native Americans. One of his famous statements, he said, quote, "We do not ask for social equality, but we do ask for justice." He supported laws like the Civil Rights Act of 1875, which aimed to ban racial discrimination in public places. Historic first, Rainey was also the first African American to preside over the House of Representatives as Speaker pro tempore in 1874. Some of the challenges he faced. His career happened during the Reconstruction, when white supremacist violence and voter suppression were growing in the South. Now we're going to stop right there because what we're dealing with today and what happened, I believe in which court was it, honey? In the Supreme Court on yesterday, okay, with the gerrymandering ruling that just took place. And I'm going to let my husband go ahead and touch a little bit on that right now as to what exactly happened. So if you could just bring it out some, Will, and then we'll get back to Rainey, okay? Joesph Rainey and some of his challenges.
If you haven't heard by now, you might have had your head in the sand or behind a rock somewhere, but SCOTUS did rule with the 6 conservatives ruled that the Section 2 Act of the Voting Right, what they did was they basically rendered it null and void. Didn't completely get rid of it, but they rendered it basically null and void. This was a case that has been going on for 30 years.
Yes.
Over 30 years, since 1996. And Chief Justice John Roberts, before he even became Chief Justice, was trying to get this ruling made. He wanted to gut, not just Section 2, he's been wanting to gut the Voter Right Act from the very beginning, from the time when he was interning in the court. He was charged with writing up dissents or reasons why the Voters' Right Act should be abolished, basically. And of course, Clarence Thomas, the old Sambo in the court, he kept pushing it because this case was already heard before, and he's the one that pushed for this case to be reheard. And he made sure of it because he also had been fighting to get this voting Section 2 Act really null and void, but he wanted to get rid of it completely. In fact, in his statement yesterday after the decision, he wanted it to go even further. Yes. So he is someone who has been helped by affirmative action, someone who's been helped because of the rules and regulations put in to get him where he is now that he's up there. Now he doesn't want to help any other Black person.
That's a
So
shame.
that's what they did. So what they're saying now is that they cannot make up maps. Basically, what they're trying to say is not to make up maps based on race,
Hmm.
when that's what they've been doing all along to benefit the white people. But
Yes.
when it comes to making it fair for the black people, then all of a sudden it's a problem, and they state that they cannot make up districts and redistrict based on race. Now, this all started back in 2013 with the Holder case, where they gutted Section 5. And then after they gutted Section 5, which Section 5 meant that basically it was for the southern states because they had done all that they could to try to discriminate with
Hmm.
black people and persons of color from voting. So that Section 5 said that before they make any changes to any voting rule or legislation, that they had to go to the DOJ, and the DOJ was to make sure that this wasn't going to disproportionately harm people of color or colored people. Well, that was for the South, because the South was the ones that were doing that with the poll
Yes.
tax, with the literacy test, with the discrimination. So they got rid of that. Now, after they got rid of that, then they went and said, okay, we got that out of here. Let's go for Section 2. And that's what they did. Is they didn't eliminate it, but they basically made it where it would be almost impossible for
Hmm.
anyone to bring a case according to Section 2, because they would have to, I believe it's called with scrutiny,
Yes.
and they'd also have to prove to down to the exact uh, site, exact point, and it would be hard to do. And so they got rid of that. So this really is going to set the stage for the gerrymandering to go explode. And as I was just looking with the show today, it's going to be up to us now to get back not just the White House and the U.S. Senate and representative, but we're going to have to take back our states too. We're
Yes.
going
Come
to have to
on.
take back our
That's
states
right.
to
That's
get
right.
this. There's a lot of damage that's been done. It's going to take a long time, folks, to repair. So you might as well get
Yes.
ready. It's going
Yes.
to take a long time to repair this damage. But with the help of the Lord and with us fighting,
Hmm.
it can be done. God's will be done.
That's
All
right.
right.
Thank
So
you,
that's a little
Will.
bit on that.
That
I
was
just
very
shared.
good. Now we have Alex on here. Hey, Alex. And he said that discrimination hasn't existed for decades now, though. That's not true, Alex, because discrimination has never really stopped. In this country, around the world, the things that are happening to African American people alone and Black and Brown people alone, it may have now what we see is we see it in a different light. You don't see the slavery part of it anymore. That's what stopped. But discrimination and racism has always been and is still here today. And so we're trying to address those things because it ought not to be so. Okay. So we're going to get on with the challenges that Joesph Rainey faced in his career. And his career happened during the Reconstruction period. And this was the time when white supremacist violence and voter suppression were growing in the South. Okay. As my husband just brought out concerning the voter suppression, the things that was happening in the Deep South. And now we have this situation here that whatever that bill was passed yesterday, where it's going to hinder, or what's going to happen is that a lot of the Black communities, right, is going
Mm-hmm.
to affect them because when they go to vote, their vote will probably go towards the other side instead of where they want their vote to be cast or to apply to. So in 1879, Rainey left Congress. I'm sorry. It says that as Black voters were attacked and intimidated, and this is what's going on today, it's intimidation. Okay, because we've already heard from different ones saying that they're going to go out to the polls and they're going to be there in numbers to scare us, to cause us to be fearful. to come down to the polls to vote. Now, if that's not discrimination, I don't know what it is. If that's not racism, then Alex, I don't know what it is. Okay, you're trying to fear people away, get people to stay away from coming down to put their vote in, of which all of us have the right to go down and cast our vote as to who we want, to be in the White House, or to speak on our behalf, or to help get the laws and the things in order for the different things that we need as a people, okay, in America. And so that is still discrimination. It's still racism, and it's still happening today. It's very real, and it's been real in this country for a long time. Now, I will say this to you, Alex. Since Donald Trump got into office, even in his last election, what happened is that a lot of the racial racism and discrimination that was being covered up was brought to the forefront. And so by him being in office, and by him saying he's here to make America great again, which only means to make America white again. America has never been white, because when they came over here on, what was it, the Mayflower?
Yeah, 1619.
In 1619.
You're talking about when Columbus?
Yes, when Columbus came here, there was blacks already here. When Columbus got here, there were Indian people already here on this land and territory. Okay, so America has never been all white. And this is what they are pushing. They don't say it out in the forefront, but we can see it by what they are doing. Okay, trying to cause a division, the scrutiny, trying to rig the election, where he said that back in 2020, that the election was rigged, and it was not rigged. They found out that it was not rigged, but he's still going on that notion that election was rigged when Joe Biden won. Okay, fair and square. And so now we have these issues of white people, white nationalist people that are following this cult MAGA group that was started by your president, okay? And so now they want America to be all white. This is why they went after getting the immigrants out of here. And there's no telling what they're going to try to do next. But now we're dealing with this situation where they have pretty much given, I would say, Republicans, okay, the leeway to be able to get more votes. Okay, so Alex says, my ancestors spilled blood for the freedom of Africans. It's sad and pathetic. Over 100 years later, you feel like this. Exactly, Alex. I agree with you 100%. Yes, exactly. We shouldn't be still back at 1619 at square one, with racism and hate being spewed across our television, being spewed out into the streets. But we know we have people like Stephen Miller. We got to call them out for who they are. Stephen Miller behind the scenes, and other ones above Donald Trump that's using him to push this narrative of hate and racism and division. And it is wrong. God hates it. And God will deal with it all in his own time. Okay.
So let me say, Alex, yes, it is sad and pathetic that we feel like this, because it's a fact. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't a fact, we wouldn't have to feel it. The sadness and patheticness is that we are still in a situation like we were 250, 400 years ago.
Yes.
We are still a racist country, and we won't recognize it. We still have racist systematic systems, and we don't want to recognize it. We have people in power that are racist, and we don't want to realize it. So it's pathetic that we feel like this, and we have to feel like this because it's a fact. Okay? You may not feel it, but it's there.
Yes. Okay. Sure. So let me finish this. It says, as black voters were attacked and intimidated, his political support was weakened. So we're still talking about Joesph Rainey. In 1879, Rainey left Congress and later worked in business and government. Rainey was a Reconstruction congressman during the 41st, 42nd, 43rd, 44th, and 45th Congresses. And he was the first African American to be seated in the House of Representatives of the United States. Other African Americans were elected to Congress before Rainey, but the congressmen refused to recognize them. Joseph Rainey went to Philadelphia in the late 1850s, where he married Susan, his wife, and afterward the two returned to South Carolina. Rainey and his wife fled to Bermuda until the end of the war. Then they returned to South Carolina and soon became involved in Republican politics in South Carolina. Now, I want you to hold that thought there.
So, Alex, I have just blocked you, okay, because you are the problem. His last statement was, I'm a young white man and I don't have no more opportunities than a black man. Well, that's a lie, Alex. And you're trolling us, so I have just blocked you, and we will not have to hear from you anymore. And any of you others out there, you other migraine headaches out there that think they're going to troll us and get us upset, it's not going to happen. We're facing fact. This is called In the Face of Truth. This is not like other podcasts where they accept the foolishness. We talk facts here, and we talk the truth here. And you migraine headaches out there that are trying to just get a moment of fame, this is not the program for it. We'll block you, and I have just blocked Alex, and I will do others. If y'all want to have a true conversation,
yes,
and you want to talk facts, and you want to act intelligent and decent, and we have a grown-up conversation, you're welcome here. But if you want to troll us and act crazy, we're going to block you. Okay? Sorry, Sharr.
That's okay. Thank you, Will, for handling that problem. Okay, so again, we want to go back to where we talked about how that Rainey and his wife fled to Bermuda until the end of the war. Then they returned to South Carolina and soon became involved in Republican politics in South Carolina. For 14 years, from 1865 to 1879, Rainey was active on many levels with both his community and the Republican Party. He and his brother, Edward, attended the Colored People's Convention at the Zion Presbyterian Church, which focused on advancing the interests of African Americans. He served as the county chairman for Georgetown and was a member of the state executive committee from 1868 to 1876. And from January 14th to March 18th, 1868, he served as the Georgetown delegate to the South Carolina Constitutional Convention held in Charleston, along with a white delegate by the name of Henry W. Webb. Rainey was a political conservative who sometimes sided with white politicians and favored a degree of leniency toward ex-Confederates. He regularly demonstrated compassion for the mistreated, especially the newly freed Black population. As a representative to the South Carolina Constitutional Convention, he supported amnesty for the Confederates and debt relief for those made destitute by the war. He opposed radical land reform and supported poll taxes if the proceeds were used for public education. He served in South Carolina. He served in the South Carolina State Militia and was an agent of the State Land Commission. When he attended the State Labor Convention in 1869, he supported legislation to protect African American workers who were suffering at the hands of former masters who wanted to relegate them to near slavery status. Now I'm gonna stop right there so we can give some input. Okay, so we see how that Joseph Rainey, he was a Republican conservative. Okay, he was a Black man, the first Black man that became one of the representatives in Congress. But yet and still, okay, he wasn't so far right that he forgot where he came from, unlike Justice Thomas in the Supreme Court. He still fought on behalf of civil rights. He still stood up on behalf of African Americans. He still realized where he had come from, even though he was a Republican conservative in Congress. My goodness. Can he teach us a lesson today? Because we have Black men that have sided with the MAGA group of the Republican Party. We can name a few. Okay. You know their names. The one from Florida.
Yeah, Byron Donalds.
Byron Donalds.
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott. Okay.
Alan West.
Alan West. We have black men that have sided with the conservative party and with the Republican Party. Now, just like Joesph Rainey, you can take a lesson from him, because Joesph Rainey did not forget who he was. He did not forget where he came from. Okay, but the ones that we have that are standing on the side of the Republicans is not standing up for black people. Okay, they're standing up and standing with a party that's trying to attack their own people, that's tearing down our black history, that don't even want our black history taught in the school system. Okay, yet we have black men in the Republican Party today. They don't speak out, they don't speak up, and they don't speak on behalf of black and brown people. And that's doing more damage to their own people, because they're standing with the side of wrong. Okay, anytime these politicians want to attack a certain group of people because of the color of their skin, and I would say it anytime, if it was the Democrats doing it, I would call them out as well. And we have to call this party out, this MAGA cult party, because that's exactly what it is. They're not glorifying God in what they're doing. They're using the name of God as a cover-up to do wrong, to steal money on behalf of the American people. And this is white people as well. They're robbing us blind. Started a war, this president did, an illegal war. And then he wants to send our kids over there to fight in this illegal war that we should have never been in with Iran. Yeah, we're calling them out. We're calling out your president that you voted for, because voting has consequences. And we are seeing the consequences of the vote that was cast to put this man in office. Now we are dealing with the consequences. Okay, so let's get back to Rainey. Once Rainey was elected to the state senate in 1870, he became chairman of the finance committee. He resigned soon after joining the state senate to fill a seat in the House of Representatives. He was elected to Congress from South Carolina's 1st congressional district to fill a vacancy caused when the House of Representatives declared B. Franklin Whitmore's seat vacant. Whitmore was guilty of selling West Point commissions. Rainey served from December 12th, 1870 to March 3rd, 1879. Records relating to his tenure appeared in both the Congressional Record and the Congressional Globe. In April 1st, 1871, in a speech relating to the necessity of the enforcement of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, Rainey stated that freedmen and women in South Carolina were being subjected to enormous crimes that found no parallel in the history of this republic in her very darkest day, according to the Congressional Globe. He argued, even now, after the great conflict between slavery and freedom, after the triumph achieved at such a cost, we can yet see the traces of the disastrous strife and the remains of disease in the body politic of the South. That is powerful. He spoke out, okay, against the fact that they were trying to bring Black people back into slavery under slave masters, and he spoke out about that. Okay, it says he argued, even now, after the great conflict between slavery and freedom, after the triumph achieved at such a cost, we can yet see the traces of the disastrous strife and the remains of disease and the body politic of the South. And this is what you're seeing in the Deep South now. How they've implemented the Jim Crow again, pretty much, the Jim Crow laws, okay? where black people couldn't go into white people's bathrooms. Black people couldn't drink from the same water fountains as white people. Okay? We're seeing this history being played out all over again, and especially in the South. It is time for us to take the reins, black people, and it's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to get our behinds up off that couch and get out here and vote. And I'm speaking to this younger generation that has no knowledge of your own history and what they're trying to do to you. And so that's why you have people like me and my husband, older people, standing up, standing against what's going on, speaking out, calling our legislators, letting them know that we need them to stand up and fight with us. Because if we don't, we'll lose our democracy. And with democracy comes your freedoms, your liberties, your civil liberties that so many of our ancestors fought and died for. I want to say hi to Nanduso Wadabi. Hi, welcome. And then I also want to say hi to Sair Sarki Sahin. He said Nelson Mandela. Yes, sir. All right. And so we're just going to get on with this. So even though we see that Joesph Rainey was a Republican, a conservative, okay, in the House, he still stood for what was right on behalf of his African-American brothers and sisters, okay? It says, in proof of this witness, the frequent outrages perpetrated upon our loyal men, the prevailing spirit of the Southerner is either to rule or to ruin. Voters must perforce succumb to their wishes or else risk life itself in the attempt to maintain the simple right of common manhood. Rainey was fighting a losing battle because by 1877, the end of Reconstruction, almost all attempts at U.S. government enforcement of rights for African Americans would be abandoned for many decades. You see what can happen when we don't stand up. You see what can happen when we don't speak out. You see what can happen when we do not resist what is happening right here in America in our faces with Project 2025. We need y'all to get up and go vote. Come the midterms. Vote blue. No, we don't agree with everything that the Democrats stand for. But when it comes to civil liberty and our civil rights and what's important to black communities, our black culture, it's worth fighting for. It's worth standing up for. It's worth speaking out for. Rainey was fighting a losing battle because by 1877, the end of Reconstruction, almost all attempts at U.S. government enforcement of rights for African Americans would be abandoned for many decades. Look, my husband already brought it out, y'all. He said that what they did in Congress yesterday, okay?
The Supreme Court.
With the Supreme Court and everything, all right? With the gerrymandering situation. It's going to hurt us, and it's going to hurt us hard. But yet we don't have to lose hope. We still have to speak up. We still have to fight. We still have to stand up for what's right. Stand up, black people, for what's right. Take back what belongs to us. There's a scripture in the Bible says that the kingdom of God suffereth violence, and the violent taketh it by force. I'm not telling you to get out here in the streets and have an illegal protest, because we have the right to protest and lift up our voices. Okay? Our voice is our power. But what we do not have the right to do is to get out here and destroy property and stuff and that type of thing. No. We have a right to speak up. We have a right to call our congressmen and women, our representatives, and tell them to do the right thing when it comes to us. Okay? The congressional record for March 2nd, 1875, records the Honorable Joesph H. Rainey's protest about the mistreatment of former slaves by the disastrous Freedoms Saving and Trust Company, which collapsed in 1874. You hear what he did? He spoke up and he spoke out. He spoke out. And the records recorded it. How that he protested against the mistreatment of former slaves by the disastrous Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company, which collapsed in 1874. He lambasted the leadership of the bank as having been determined to deceive the inexperienced and credulous former bondsmen and women. In spite of protests by Rainey and many others, nothing stopped the malpractices of the bank's administrators. Few depositors ever retrieved their hard-earned funds. You think about it today, a lot of black people go, we may not have the best of credit, some of us. We may not have that 800, 900 credit score, but you got a 700 to 600 credit score and you still can't get a loan for a house. You still can't get a loan for a car. Did you ever stop to think why? You see why it's important that we stand up and speak out and fight against wrongful laws that are being put in place that's hindering the progress of African American people and communities in this country and all over the world. It says here, life after Congress. After Rainey left Congress, he was appointed as an Internal Revenue agent in South Carolina on May the 22nd, 1879, and served until July 15th, 1881. Rainey, a businessman before he was a politician, maintained an active interest in investments during his career. He held stock in the Greenville and Enterprise Railroads and tried to manage an unproductive banking and brokerage business in Washington, D.C. His death and legacy. Rainey died in 1887 at age 55, likely from complications of malaria. His legacy is huge because he opened the door for generations of black lawmakers, including leaders like John Lewis and Barack Obama. Joesph Rainey's life represents the possibilities of Reconstruction and the fierce backlash against black political progress in America. I love how it says here his legacy consisted of the fact that because he stood up for what he believed in, it opened the doors for generations of black lawmakers, including leaders like John Lewis and Barack Obama. Okay? Our lives affect, there is an effect that we have. Our lives should be affecting other people's lives for the good. Okay? That's what our lives should represent. We should all be willing to leave a legacy of good behind for the next generation. And this is why you have so many standing up and speaking out against the ruling yesterday, because it's going to do damage to the black communities and the black vote. And they know this. When Rainey's health failed, he left Washington, D.C., and returned to Georgetown, where he died on August the 1st, 1887. He was buried at the Baptist Cemetery. The info was taken from ChatGPT and encyclopedia.com. So at this time, I'm going to get ready to turn it over to my husband. He's got some things to share with you when it comes to voting in the midterms come November, and why it's important to vote a certain way instead of voting the other way. Again, we're not here to tell you how to vote, but we want to explain to you and give you the information that you need to understand why you should vote a certain way when it comes to black people, when it comes to getting our needs met, when it comes to our voices being heard in Congress and change being made in our communities, in our cities, okay? Even in our churches. This affects every area of our lives, and it's going to affect the next generation behind us, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. And so this is the time to rise. So I'm going to turn it to Will at this time. Will?
Okay, so a few things I want to add to Joseph Rainey that I studied on it. When we look at him, we realize that he was born, first of all, to Grace, who was of African and French descent, and also his father, Edward Rainey. And Edward Rainey was also, as my wife said, was a barber. But it was interesting that he also purchased slaves. His father purchased slaves by 1850, and by 1860 he purchased a few more slaves. And they said that they was likely working in his barbershop along with Joesph. So I don't know if he was buying them basically to get them a better life,
Yes.
or whatever. But even though his father had slaves, Joseph Rainey still knew the evilness of slavery, and he fought against that as he grew up in his political life. As a U.S. representative, Joseph Rainey championed civil rights, education, and economic opportunity for all. He served 9 years and inspired the political careers of some of 15 African Americans who served in Congress during the 10-year Reconstruction period after the Civil War. He was an early advocate of two pivotal landmark civil rights protections in the United States Constitution: the 14th Amendment, which gave full citizenship and equal protection of the laws to all people born in America, and including former African slaves, and the 15th Amendment, which prohibited the federal government and states from denying a citizen the right to vote on the basis of race, color, or previous condition. And his career ended after he lost re-election in 1878. In mid-1878, Rainey warned President Hayes of the increasing violence and rhetoric meant to limit the African American vote in South Carolina.
Yes.
So we have some quotes from him, I believe.
Yes. We have two quotes today. Our first quote is, "If you don't help push the wagon uphill, don't try to grab a ride on it going downhill." Okay. So this quote refers to fairness, hard work, and accountability, suggesting that those who avoid difficult work should not share in the rewards or easy success. So if you can't push the wagon uphill with everybody else trying to push this wagon, okay, of getting out here and voting, changing the narrative and the things that's affecting African American, Black and brown people and marginalized people, then don't try to grab a ride downhill, okay, on the wagon. Okay, you got to do the work. We got to do the work. Am I right, Will?
Right.
We have to do the work. It's time now to get up and speak up. Speak out, stand up, call your representatives in Congress, get out and vote in numbers, in ridiculous numbers. When the midterms come, get out and vote. Vote blue. Okay? And he's going to tell you, my husband's going to tell you why. What the difference is between voting blue and voting red in this time, in this season that we are in. We're in a different season now. Yes, Joseph Rainey was a Republican. He was a conservative, but his heart was in the right place when it came to try to help his own people. All right. Quote number 2 says, "We ain't going down without a fight." This quote signifies a firm determination to resist, struggle, or compete until the very end, rather than surrendering easily. It is often used in sports, business, and competitive contexts to express defiance and resilience. And we got this information off of Reddit. Okay, so we're not going down without a fight. I don't know about you, but I played in sports. I was a basketball player. I ran track. I played softball. Okay, and I didn't go out there just for the fun of it, even though it was fun. I went out there because I wanted to win. I wanted my team to win. And I wanted to be a part of that and helping my team to win. So we don't need to go down and just give up and quit just because they passed what they passed yesterday in Congress. This is the time to put your boots on the ground, grab your backpacks, and let's ride. Let's get down to business with this. Tell everybody you know in your community that they need to go and vote blue come the midterms. Get your friends and your family and sit down and talk to them and let them know the importance of why we need to vote blue, because if we don't, we're going to lose all of our civil rights. The people in the South are hurting right now because they have the Jim Crow laws back there, or down there, I should say. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back to Will at this time.
Do we have 3 quotes?
Oh, we have 3 things to remember.
No, the quotes.
No, we only
I
had
thought
2.
we had 3. Oh, okay.
No, 3 things to
All right,
remember.
3 things
2
to
quotes.
remember. Okay. So I'll talk about the difference between the Republican and Democratic Party. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, the Republican Party was the one, and you hear especially from the right, talking about we're the party of Lincoln, we're the one that freed the slaves. Well, they're misleading you. I told you that the Democratic Party today was the Republican Party of then
Yes.
in 1800, and the Republican Party then is the Democratic Party of today. Now here, just in a nutshell, we talked about this before. I'll probably to go into more detail in a later video. But here's the situation. Back in, after the Civil War, it was the Democratic Party that was mostly Southerners that created the Ku Klux Klan. They could have created the white supremacist organizations because they wanted to establish Jim Crow. They wanted to intimidate the former slaves, and they wanted to, again, get control. So that was the Democratic Party then. And they were against anything that was dealt with civil rights. The Republican Party back then were made of conservatives, and not conservatives like today. The conservatives in the Republican parties today are fake.
Yes.
Back in there, the conservative party, the Republicans, believed no slavery. They believed in civil rights. They were basically with the abolitionists, who were kind of a religious group, and they believed that slavery was wrong. And they made up the Republican Party. So after the Civil War, the Republican Party took in black people, and most of the representatives, Joesph Haney was the first, and the other one that you mentioned
Rainey.
as the senator, he was the first senator, and he was the first black person in Congress.
Yes.
And then Joseph Rainey came as the first black representative in the House of Representatives. So most of the black politicians were in the Republican Party because of the fact that the Republican Party was the one that was taking them in and believed in civil rights and slavery and anti-slavery. Now, in Reconstruction, basically was the fact that federal troops were in the South because, of course, the Southern people weren't going to act right. So they had to put federal troops in the Southern states to make sure that they were following the law. Okay, they still had Jim Crow, but they had the federal troops there as kind of a shield of protection to try to right those wrongs.
Yes.
Well, in 1876, with the election of Rutherford B. Hayes, it was a controversy, and so the election came down to the House of Representatives, who was controlled by the Democrats. And so they made a deal. It was nothing that is out there on public record, but it is known. I think it's called the Wormley deal, where they said, okay, if you want Rutherford B. Hayes to be president, then what you're going to have to do is withdraw those troops from the South. And so that was their agreement. So Rutherford B. Hayes became president. The Southern House of Representatives voted him as president. But as a result, what they got was those federal troops were taken out of the South. So that made sure that Jim Crow flourished immensely.
Wow.
So down the line, we had the blacks with the Republican Party and the white with the Democratic Party, the Southerners especially, the racists, the Klan, all of them. Well, coming up in 1930s, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, of course, the country was in a depression, getting ready to go into a war. So President Roosevelt, as part of his economic plan, had what we call the New Deal. And what the New Deal did was not just help whites, but help blacks, especially the black farmers. If you looked at the show Roots, you see that Alex Haley's father was fighting to
Yes.
get the black farmers and them the checks that they needed from this New Deal. So this is what started Franklin Delano Roosevelt. With the help, it was Eleanor Roosevelt really that had the heart for the black people, and she influenced Franklin Delano Roosevelt to do some things. And the New Deal was part of that. So this is when the shift kind of changed, because why? They were helping black people. So of course Franklin Delano, they got into the war. Franklin Delano Roosevelt passed. Harry Truman, he came on. He had the support of what was called the Dixiecrats. The Dixiecrats were the tough, stern Southern group that was against any anti-lynching laws. They were against any civil rights laws, anything to help blacks or African Americans. They were against it. Those were the Dixiecrats, and they was in the Democratic Party. Well, Harry Truman in 1948 in his campaign, he introduced a civil rights. He's saying it's time for us to start thinking about civil rights.
Yes.
Well, that didn't go good with the Dixiecrats. They had their own convention in Birmingham and gave their own candidate. Now, Truman still won in 1948, but those Dixiecrats, they were not happy because they didn't want anything to do. I think they nominated Strom Thurmond, and we all know what he was about. He did get 1 million votes,
Yes.
so it was an influence. So what those Dixiecrats then did was they started leaning toward the Republican Party. And then those black Republicans, seeing how the Democrats were now starting to show, hey, we need to start having some civil rights, they started trickling over to the Democratic Party. Of course, we went through Eisenhower, we went through then Kennedy. Kennedy, again, was talking about civil rights.
Yes.
The Democratic Party. 1964, Lyndon Johnson was voted in after he took over from Kennedy. After Kennedy was assassinated, Lyndon Johnson took over. He was racist as anything. But, and I still say, the Lord moved him. The Lord
Yes.
moved in all of them. They didn't want to do this, but this was the Lord's movement,
Yes.
Lord's will. So Lyndon Johnson, of course, signed the Civil Rights Act. He signed the Voting Rights Act. He signed the Fair Housing Act. He was a Democrat. And he said in a quote, the night that is reported, that his assistant, the night that Lyndon Johnson voted, was signed the Civil Rights Act, he was in his bedroom, and the assistant said, "What's wrong?" And Lyndon Johnson said, "I think I've just given the white vote, Southern white vote, to the Republicans," and which he did. And of course, he also said they would have the black people voting for 40 years for him. So in 1968, at the convention, the Democrats put forth on their agenda, whatever they call when they have their agenda.
Yes.
I forgot what it's called, but it was that they was going all in for civil rights. They believed that it was to be civil rights for Black Americans, people of color, but basically Black African Americans.
Yes.
And that's when the Dixiecrats completely left the Democratic Party and went over to the Republican Party. And the Republican Party adopted the Southern strategy, which basically was a racist strategy.
My
Anything
God.
to help black people, they were against. Okay, so when the Dixiecrats went over to the Republican Party then became the Democratic Party of the 1800s. And the Democratic Party, when they introduced the Civil Rights Acts and wanted more civil rights, they became more the party of the Republican Party for the black people. And that's when the black people went to the Democratic Party. So now we have the Democratic Party today that are more for civil rights, even though they're not doing too much now. I think they could do more. The Republican Party was trying to get that strategy, a Southern strategy.
Yes.
And of course, the quote in 1980, I think 85, when he said the Republican, I forgot that, I got to get the name of the man, but he said the Republican Party has finally got the spirit of Jefferson Davis. So when you go out here to vote blue, not that you need to do a Democrat, okay? We are neither Democrat or Republican. We're Christ, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
We're for what's right.
And independent.
We do not stand for the LGBTQ or the abortion stance that the Democrats take on. Okay? We do not, because we believe in the Word of God. And just like the Republican people should not take on the racism.
That's right.
It's okay to be conservative, but like I said,
That's
they are
right.
not, Republicans are not conservative today. Republicans are MAGA, which goes completely against what God stands for.
Yes, my God.
So what we need to do is make sure that we vote blue, as I said, as black people, because, and then force them when they get in office to make the changes that's needed for the black people. We have a governor's race here in Ohio where Vivek Ramaswamy is probably going to be the Republican nominee. He had the audacity to put out an ad talking about if he gets in office, has some lady up there talking about he protects trafficking, he's going to do something about the sex trafficking and everything, when he is endorsed by an alleged pedophile.
Yes, my God.
When he is endorsed by a party that refuses to release the Epstein files and get justice for women who were trafficked and who were abused.
Yes.
And he has the audacity to put up an ad saying he's going to be there. He has not asked, say, when he was running, and it was popular for the Republicans to say it when they thought they was going to have all Democrats in the files. It was popular for him to say release it. But since then, since he was out of the running, he hasn't said one peep about releasing the Epstein files and getting justice. But he has the audacity to put up a commercial here to deceive the people.
Yes.
He's put up 2 commercials that were full of lies. And we're going to get more into that as the election season goes. He is of Indian descent. And I've been told by people, I'm not sure, but that Indian descents do have a disdain for African Americans. And Vivek Ramaswamy already said he's going to close the only HBCU college in Ohio. So black people, you need to know this. You need to get out in droves and support.
That's right.
Not saying Amy Atkins is probably going to be the candidate against him. Not saying that she's going to be any better, but at least we know that she will listen.
Yes.
She will not gut civil rights. She will not go against African Americans, and we need to press on that. If she wants our votes, where is she going to stand on that?
Yes.
That's what we need to do. We know where Vivek stands on it because we know he's endorsed by the man in the White House.
That's
and
right.
we know what the man in the White House stands for. So don't be fooled. Okay? So when they come and tell you that the Republican Party is the one that freed the slave, yes, they are. And today it's called the Democratic Party. Okay? When they say, well, the Democratic Party was the one that hung and lynched and the Ku Klux Klan, yes. Today it's called the Republican Party. Okay, those are the facts. This is in the face of truth. We're going to tell you the truth.
Yes.
And that's the way it is. Okay? So chew on that.
That
all right, let's go with the 3 things to remember, and we'll get out of here.
3 things to remember, okay? First of all, don't let negative circumstances stop your progress. And this is something we took away and we learned from Joesph Rainey. You know, hats off to Joesph Rainey for fighting for civil rights and civil liberties and for his own people. Don't let negative circumstances stop your progress. Keep going, okay? The second one is fear is not an option. Courage is the resolution. Fear is not an option. Courage is the resolution. Do not fear, my people. This is something we must do in this day and this time, and that is stand up, speak out, okay? And stand up for what you know is right and true, okay? Nobody has the right to think that their group of people is more superior than any other group of people. God made us all equal. Man doesn't have to say so over that, okay? Number 3, don't quit. Stay the course until you reach the finish line. Don't quit. Stay the course until you reach the finish line. Okay, we got to go all the way with this. Okay, we can't stop and start. And I told my husband I would hit this a little bit before we go off camera here, and that is Democratic Party. When everything first went down and Kamala Harris lost the race, it was stolen allegedly. Okay. We didn't hear from the Democratic Party for weeks. We didn't hear from Kamala Harris for weeks. It seemed like everybody went into hiding. Look, this is not the time to drag our feet. This is not the time to cower, fear, sit down, or go into hiding. It's time for us to stand up and fight for our rights. Okay? It's time for us to continue to speak out. It's time for us to mobilize, organize, and get together on this thing as Black people in America and those that are looking at us around the world. We have a fight on our hands, okay? And we need to go all the way to the finish line with the fight, okay? So everybody get together in your communities, get together with your families, friends, and encourage our people and anybody else out there, white, Mexican, Black, that knows that this administration is pushing, making laws and pushing things upon the American people that we did not ask for. He is not making America great. Look at the gas prices going up. Now gas is at what, $4 and something? Will, look at the grocery prices. They're still rising. This illegal war over in Iran. Come on now. Let's get together and let's do this. Back to Will.
Okay, so that's our program for tonight. Hit that like and subscribe button and join us next week, 6:30, for our next broadcast. And we thank you all for joining us. This is Will and Sharr in the Face of Truth. Until then, join us on Facebook for Sunday morning for our True Apostolic Holiness Church Sunday morning service at 11:30, and on Tuesday night, 7 p.m., on Fire for Jesus, our Bible study. We're in the book of Psalms, chapter 2 and 3 next week. And then don't forget next Thursday, In the Face of Truth with Will and Sharr, because we're willing to share the truth with you.
Yes.
God bless.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Hit that like and share button. Okay, and invite somebody to come out next week, Thursday at 6:30 in the Face of Truth. Thank you.